Hey, hi, hello. Welcome to Diana Emerson. Today we're listening to Witness to Murder.
Morgan and I were working together on the same shift, but that morning, she's a no-show. I remember being like, there's no way, like, my Morgan's not dead. Like, how could that be possible? I go to grab my phone, and I Googled her name, and it said Morgan Ashley Fox, 29, found dead. I'm just like, who would kill her?
The visual evidence in this case showed us that he was obsessed with Morgan Fox.
Honestly, I was kind of creeped out by it.
She deleted him off of all social media, and he lost it. It was kind of scary.
It was amazing the amount of material that we found.
I really think he thought he was smarter than the technology.
But what he forgot was that in this day and age, there's no such thing as a private life.
I love my mom a lot. She was my whole world and life. I will never see her again because of the monster in this room.
Obsession can lead to murder, and it did in this case. Every little piece of digital evidence helped us prove that this guy decided that if I can't have her in my life, nobody's going to have her in their life.
The digital evidence revealed a whole different side of him that no one really knew. They knew that he was a little different, but what was on his phone was overwhelming.
Police medical. I'm pretty sure my girlfriend's dead. I got up for work, came out, looked outside, seen a car out here. I came out here and she's laying in her front seat, unresponsive, very cold, covered in blood.
On October 28th of 2020, 911 received a call that a woman was found shot in her driveway.
Oh my God.
You doing okay, sir?
No.
I understand. We're going to get you some help here as quick as possible.
I responded to the scene. As I approached the driveway, I saw a female sitting in the vehicle slumped over the center console. Her boyfriend found her that morning when he woke up. She worked for a shipping company that was local, and she worked early morning shift. So she has to be at work at 2:30 in the morning, and she's usually gone by 2:15. But he saw her vehicle still in the driveway. Her name was Morgan Fox.
Morgan was our stepsister. Our parents met back in 2000. There is 13 of us together between my dad and Cindy. And the best part about Morgan for me was that it had like a new twin, even though we look nothing alike. So we are only 6 months apart.
When our dad met Morgan's mom, it was literally like the Brady Bunch. We all just kind of meshed.
Morgan was extremely outgoing. Like she was super funny.
Everything was loud about her. There was no volume button for Morgan. Morgan was all about family. She was 20 when she found out she was pregnant.
she just absolutely adored Amelia. From the time she got pregnant until the time she died, Amelia was absolutely everything.
Morgan met her boyfriend Jason while they were working together. Amelia was around the age of 6. They had planned to have a family. They wanted this to be forever.
Morgan had been working for the shipping company. She had to work a flex shift, so they would go in anywhere from 1:30 to like 4:30 in the morning. Because it was that early in the morning, Amelia would go spend the night with the parents so Morgan could go to bed and then wake up for work.
Cindy, our stepmom, always called Morgan every morning to make sure she was up for work. So on October 28th, early in the morning of 2020, Morgan was already up. When Cindy called, Morgan answered and she's like, "Hey Mom, I'm already up. No worries. Already up." So Cindy said, "All right, great." And they got off the phone.
I responded to the scene that morning. Shortly after 7 a.m., it was October in Ohio, so it's kind of cold, rainy, drizzly. And as I approached her house, I saw some other items that were out on the ground that appeared to have fallen. She had like some lunch items, stuff like that, and her cell phone, which had been cracked probably from the fall. Nowadays, phones are probably the best tool to get to know a victim and what is going on in their life. So I'm looking at the phone, going, what do I do with this?
With the phones in the wet ground, I picked that up and secured it. I needed to send it to the crime lab.
There was still money inside of the vehicle, so it gave us an indication that it wasn't just a random robbery. You start looking at that and you go, okay, is this domestic related? And at that point in time, I did go in and speak with her live-in boyfriend, Jason Skarnecchia. I requested him to come out to the sheriff's office with me. It was early in the morning, so he wanted to get a pair of socks out of his drawer. The whole place is now a crime scene, so we don't let people just randomly walk through.
So I gave him the choice to, I will get the socks or you can go without socks, and he chose to go without them. So that was a little suspicious to us. Felt like there was something he was trying to hide from us.
Jason was transported back to our office, and I ultimately joined the interview room with him.
I stay on scene, do a little more investigation. A .22 caliber bullet was found in the door of Morgan Fox's vehicle, but we didn't find any firearms in the house. It was a rainy morning. I noticed some tire tracks and mud spatter on the fence of the neighbor's house. Looked pretty fresh. We had patrol units canvass the neighborhood, local businesses throughout that area, looking for Ring doorbell cameras or video surveillance cameras. Several residents had some doorbell cameras, but they didn't have the footage on their phone, so I sent search warrants to Ring to try to get any video they had. Morgan's mom arrived shortly after the coroner's investigator came. She showed up at the end of the street where the crime scene tape was and said that she had received a call from a co-worker at Morgan's that she didn't come to work today and was just concerned about that.
And at that time, our stepmom, she didn't know anything until a reporter yelled, "Your daughter's dead."
And she said, "Your daughter's been shot in the head." The reporter is how Cindy found out. I remember thinking, like, wouldn't Jason have told Cindy? Like, how come Cindy's finding out this way? Like, I can't believe Jason didn't call. And then it hit me like he called 911, stayed on the phone until they got there, and then they took him in for questioning and took his phone.
when I had interviewed her boyfriend, he did show what we would consider normal emotions and reactions. He was obviously upset, kind of in shock about the whole situation. He was pretty open and honest, even talking about, their relationship problems or arguments that they would have. You can't rule them out at that point in time. It's just like, okay, let's see what other evidence we can get. And then he indicated to me that she had had some issues at work with some male coworkers.
Morgan and I were coworkers and friends at work. We talked every day. And it was morning. I was looking for her, so I texted her, and I didn't hear back. Around 8 o'clock, the police called my phone and said that Morgan was gone. And I just collapsed. I wanted to talk to the police immediately because I knew so much information that she had shared with me. I wanted to explain what had happened 2 weeks prior.
That morning, me and my 2 kids at the time were just getting ready for the day, and my phone rang, and I saw it said Dad, and he was so choked up, and he was really upset. He said, Morgan's gone. I said, Dad, what do you mean she's gone? Where'd she go? And he's like, she's gone, Tess. Someone took her, and she's dead. I just fall to my knees. I kept looking at my phone because I'm like, it's not true. I Googled her name, and it said, like, Morgan Ashley Fox, 29, found dead. And it's right there is a picture of, like, the car, and it's, like, all taped off. And I just remember screaming, like, who would kill her? Like, who would take Morgan? And when I made it to Canton, my grandma, my dad, my aunt were all inside the house, and everyone's crying. And when I see Cindy pull up, the second she walks out of the car, just falls to the ground. And she says, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I said, I don't know. Denise, our stepmom, knew there had been problems at work. So the first words that came out of her mouth were, go to the shipping company. Somebody there did this to her.
Later in the afternoon, we went to the shipping company. We then ended up speaking with Michelle.
Morgan had talked to me about so many issues at work. So I proceeded to tell them everything about the situation. There were a couple other managers who were giving her a hard time, kind of picking on her, or bullying her, harassing her. She just felt like, why are they picking on me? And then she told me the story of what had happened on October 8th. She was looking for her phone in the warehouse, and so she had asked around her, hey, did anyone see my phone? And there was a guy there, Larry, who had said to her, Jason McDermott, the package handler, has it up in the sort tower. She went up there and confronted him, and she saw him hide it in his pocket, so she was upset. Eventually, he gave her her phone. She could tell that these 3 people had looked at her private things that were on there. They were snickering and making like sexist remarks about her, and she was really hurt because she was trying to be professional. She was very much violated.
In this day and age, when someone gets your cell phone, it's a huge invasion of privacy if they don't have your permission. You have personal photos, personal text messages, personal opinions, everything and anything that you do in your life's activity is typically on your cell phone.
She had reported it to her upper management, and 10 days after that, and she came to me, she had said, they haven't done anything about it, and could you help me? She was crying, she was desperate, she's like, I just want a resolution to this. So on October 27th, the night before she died, I had mentioned to her, why don't you go ahead and work on an email that you can send to HR. Tomorrow, when I come to work, I'll look it over with you. The next morning, I got concerned, thinking, well, where is she?
Immediately after hearing that she was having these problems with some fellow coworkers, they immediately became suspects in this case. One of the guys in the group of the coworkers that looked through her phone was a 29-year-old named Jason McDermott. So I transported him to the sheriff's office for an interview.
So this right here, I know Sergeant Kennedy actually left this up here.
Once we arrived at the station, he gave consent for me to look through his cell phone. So I did that while he was being interviewed.
So let me ask you a question. Yeah. Because this is point blank. I told you I'm not going to lie here. I appreciate that. So your phone that you have, that's your phone, the one that you have in your hand out there. Yes. That's your phone. Is that phone going to show you at all at Morgan's house last night? No. It's not. No. Where were you last night? At home. You were at your house, and then I went to work. You left there at what time? I always leave 10 till 3. 10 till 3 is when you walk out the door? And then I get to work at 3. Get to work right at 3? Takes 10 minutes to get there.
We knew Morgan was killed at 2:15 a.m., the time she was supposed to leave for work. I first checked his location, his Google Maps, and I noticed that his phone didn't leave his apartment that whole evening until he left for work. But I noticed he did have several alarms set on his cell phone, and one of them was for 1:20 a.m. I knew he didn't have to be to work until 3, so that was suspicious. Because he only works about 10 to 12 minutes from his apartment. It was, why did he have the alarm set so early?
Morgan had 2 males named Jason that were involved in her life. One was her live-in boyfriend, and one was a co-worker, Jason McDermott. Still on October 28th, we had not ruled out the boyfriend. But you have to go with what you have at the point in time and where your evidence is taking you. During the interview later in the afternoon with Morgan's co-worker, Jason McDermott, he basically ended up painting me a picture of them being good friends. But as we were going through his phone, it appeared to me that he was infatuated with her. I could see text strings and text conversations between them to where if she didn't answer right away, he was blowing her up with several messages, you know. He would call her, she wouldn't answer, and then clearly you could just see his tone was different through the text.
So, just from looking through you guys' text messages, I will tell you that there's a very different story there compared to what you portray as just being friends. I'm telling you, I know what it is when I read it. Okay. And you may have been playing along with the friendship, and I will 100% believe that you're a level term. There's an infatuation there going on your end. Maybe not necessarily her end.
I never saw it as such. But before I said when I was questioning whether or not I felt anything about her, yes, I did inquire with people without thinking about it. I was like, I do have feelings for her. I wasn't sure, and I was like, I was pondering it for a while, and then eventually I came to the conclusion that, no, I just really care about her. Then I met that girl, Mickey, and I've been trying to pursue her ever since.
I met Jason McDermott around August, and he had trained me in what we had called the tower. We hit it off right away. We became friends. We would talk, for hours on the phone. I don't want to say McDermott had like a weird fascination with Morgan, but he talked about her like he looked at her in a good light. He's telling me about an incident that happened with Morgan's phone. He's telling me that he messed up, he made a mistake, he doesn't know what to do, and he's like sending me screenshots of their conversation. She texted him and said, I can see when files and stuff were open and closed. She said, mistakes can be forgiven, but lying breaks trust. She didn't want to be his friend anymore. And she deleted him off of all social media. He ended up getting really upset about it. And he's texting her and he's apologizing to her, telling her that he's sorry. He wasn't eating. He wasn't sleeping. He didn't want to go out and do anything because it was so depressing to him that Morgan didn't want to talk to him anymore. I was like, you need to let this Morgan thing go. You gotta let it go. And he just wouldn't.
After the interview, there wasn't enough to keep him, to detain him, so we had to take him back to the place we picked him up from. But I kept his phone that day and secured it as evidence. I needed to send it to the lab for a deeper forensic.
So the next day, when we come back in, there's so much to do. We had directed some of the road deputies to look for doorbell cameras, and none of them were found to have anything worth value at that point. Rocco does the request for traffic cameras. He's typing up search warrants for cell phones. Everyone's trying to write reports, pretty much just getting all the information and putting it together.
When I tried to think about okay, this happened, who did it? I was clueless. I never thought for a second it was her boyfriend. Just because he wouldn't do that to Amelia.
We had several people from the shipping company that we wanted to talk to at that point in time. One of our detectives had applied for some search warrants and got all of the personnel files.
Going through all those files, I learned that this has been kind of a pattern with Jason McDermott, really gravitating toward women and harassing them. There was another coworker that he started harassing her through social media and text messaging. So she had to go to HR to get him to leave her alone.
I was aware that he had some issues with other females at work. It seemed like he would obsess over people, definitely over this group of girls that he was hanging with, and then with Morgan as well. It, occurred to me hey, there's, more to the story here.
There's a lot of things that are pointing towards McDermott, a lot of strange behaviors, more information's pouring in, but the video surveillance from the traffic cameras is what changed everything.
The day after the murder, we have a lot of suspects to get through, a lot of information to find out who killed Morgan Fox.
If someone's brash enough to walk up to someone else and put 2 bullets at pretty close range to them, we want to get him off the streets as soon as possible before he can hurt someone else.
We still were talking to her boyfriend. He hadn't been ruled out yet. And then we had McDermott and a couple other coworkers. McDermott told me he washed his car at a gas station that morning after work, which was strange because it was raining that morning. So I went to that gas station to see if they can provide any video evidence. I saw Jason McDermott pull into the gas station and go directly through the car wash. But something that really stood out to me is right when he was pulling in through the car wash, he hit that chassis wash and went through really slow, stopped, backed up, and then went through it again to get the front of his vehicle twice. And that took me back to seeing the mud spatter on the fence when I first arrived to the scene, and then the tire tracks in the mud. So it was very suspicious.
When Rocco ended up telling me about that, it changed a lot for us because he never mentioned going through the car wash to me. He did with Rocco, but not me.
After work, you didn't go home and take a shower or nothing like that?
No. I went straight to my mom's house from work.
It wasn't enough for an arrest warrant, but that was a big indicator. Why did he lie about this?
I was struggling really bad with not knowing what happened. I just couldn't believe that we weren't hearing anything. And my dad just kept reassuring me, like, you just have to trust the detectives. Morgan's funeral was a few days after Morgan had died. It was just close family. And that funeral was the worst experience of my life. And I remember, like, my body just, like, gave out. And I'm like, I cannot believe this is, like, our Morgan. Like, there is no way that this is her. Like, and it was, you know.
I remember Amelia getting really upset. She's like, Mom will wake up. She wouldn't leave me. Mommy won't leave me. And she said that at her funeral.
On October 31st, we decided to do a candlelight at her home, just giving some good memories and possibly reaching to get to anybody, saying, hey, if you have any information, turn it in. I went and picked McDermott up. As we're driving, he's like, do you think those cameras are working? I said, what cameras? And he crouches his head down, and he's pointing at all the traffic lights. Like when you run a light or when you're speeding, they snap a picture really quick. And he was like, yeah, or are they running all the time? I said, I don't know. And he was like, well, I hope they caught something.
Most traffic cameras do record constantly. It just depends on the camera, and it depends on what agency has them on what they do.
A couple days after the murder, we were able to get traffic camera footage and some local business video footage. At 1:28 a.m., we saw a blue Ford Focus matching the description of McDermott's vehicle, and then turning towards the area of Morgan Fox's residence. It all started making more sense as to why the alarm was set at 1:20.
Rocco was able to track that car all the way across to Morgan Fox's house through different cameras that it was picked up on.
His phone said he was still home during this time, but we see his vehicle in that area. It was clear that he had his phone off during this time or just left it at home before he left. He thought he was smarter. But we have a lot of tools that we can look at. After I saw the vehicle on the traffic cams, I was able to get a search warrant for his vehicle. And we went to the parent's house where he was and towed his vehicle back to the sheriff's office.
Once Rocco obtained the search warrant for McDermott's car, he actually had an explosive detecting canine come out.
The canine immediately went to the driver's seat and gave us alert, and that was an immediate indication that there was an explosive material, gunpowder, in that area. A freshly fired gun had been stored there.
My suspicions about Jason McDermott started growing more after we did the candlelight for Morgan. McDermott's obsession was showing. There was one conversation we had where he said, they're going to charge me with this, and they're going to make it look like I did it. And then on his Facebook, he wrote a pretty lengthy post about her.
It was paragraph after paragraph after paragraph about what she meant to him. And I knew he meant nothing to Morgan. I was concerned. I was like, this is a little weird. I think he was trying to look like the good guy. So, I truly do. I think that was the red flag for everyone in our family.
On November 3rd, I said, I need to go to the sheriff's department. I told the sheriff 6 pages worth of things that he had did, red flags for me.
Everything was compiling. We had no solid physical evidence, but we had a ton of circumstantial evidence. We had the traffic cam footage. We had the car wash footage. The phone alarm being set that early, we had the canine hit on this vehicle. So on November 4th, 7 days after the murder, we had enough pieces of the puzzle to go get an arrest warrant for Jason McDermott.
When the arrest was made, they called us and told us it was Jason McDermott. I instantly felt like at peace. All Morgan would want from us is to make sure nothing happens to Amelia. For me, knowing that he could not hurt her was a huge relief that I can at least do that. I was glad there was an arrest made. But then I spiraled with all the other what ifs. Did he do this on his own? Was there anybody with him? How could we have avoided this? Why didn't we stop this? And why couldn't we save Morgan? Because that's the answer that's never going to get answered. There is no answer. We couldn't.
Once the warrant's issued and you're actually able to get them in custody, it's a great feeling knowing that they can't hurt anybody else. Just because you put them in jail doesn't mean that your case is over. You still have to go through all the work to make sure that you get a successful prosecution.
We started working with the chief prosecutor, Dennis Barr, on putting this case together to present to grand jury. The digital evidence just keeps coming in more and more.
A few weeks after Jason was arrested, we received the entire download of his phone, text messages, videos, all kinds of things. It was amazing the amount of material that we found on it that referred to Morgan Fox.
There were videos of Morgan on McDermott's phone. Clearly, you can tell he was just taking on his own
without other people knowing. He would follow behind her and video her as she was walking, and he would keep zooming in the video on her rear end. He had 70-some pictures of Morgan that he had obtained, not from her, but through other means. So on phones, there's an app where you can record various screens as you're watching them. And one of the things he would do is, as he was watching Morgan's Snapchat, he would do the screen record.
On Snapchat, whenever someone would take a screenshot of that user's account, that person would get alerted that someone took a screenshot. And this app that he had on there was a workaround that, because he was just recording everything he was looking at on his screen without anyone knowing. And then there was a chat that he had on Skype with a person that he was pretending to be someone else.
Jason had been pretending that he was a female in a lesbian relationship, and it started to include Morgan as being his partner. So he just not only had those fantasies to himself, he was sharing them with people in chat rooms.
He would talk about sexual experiences with her that he never had, but claimed he did, and it's very disturbing. Really creepy.
It all just pointed to the fact that this guy was very, very obsessed with Morgan Fox. And I think the line got crossed when Morgan cut off all ties with him. I think he decided that if I can't have her in my life, nobody's going to have her in their life.
About 6 months after Morgan died, we finally had a trial. Because of COVID, we couldn't all be in there. We had to be in a separate room. But at the same time, I know I felt this way, and I'm sure Cora did as well. We couldn't save Morgan, but we darn Skippy gonna make sure that he ain't walking away.
In April of 2021, the trial started. It lasted 4 days. We never found a murder weapon in this case. However, we took from his father's apartment 4 handguns. For when it came to a .22 caliber revolver pistol that his father had, our crime lab guy couldn't say it wasn't the gun, but he couldn't say it was the gun. And that's a problem that you have with small caliber weapons. So the digital evidence in this case was the most important evidence we had to prove that Jason McDermott murdered Morgan Fox on that day on October 28th, 2020. The video footage that we had of Mr. McDermott's car, the text messages, the Skype conversations, it was all something that pointed at the fact that this guy was obsessed with Morgan Fox. And when you combine it with the fact that on a rainy day he's going to a car wash, that was another piece of the puzzle that we had to prove that his car could have left these tire marks in there. The very last thing I did was I talked to the jury and I told them, look, who would know that there was mud on his car? Played it again, and this time I pointed out, watch when he walks around that car. As soon as he got to that passenger side, he went like this. And I said, only the killer would know that. He's sitting right there. And that's how we ended. The jury found Jason guilty of aggravated murder, menacing by stalking, and a firearm specification attached to the aggravated murder.
I remember just sobbing hysterically because it was like, we did it. Like, we got him. He can't hurt anyone else, and he can't hurt Amelia.
Morgan's 8-year-old daughter, at the conclusion of the trial and prior to sentencing, was permitted under the law to give a victim impact statement.
I love my mom a lot. She was my whole world and life. I will never see her again because of the monster in this room.
Amelia was very adamant from the very beginning that she would be in court. She wanted to see him and she wanted to ask him why. He, for the first time, showed emotion in the sense of like dropped his head and shook his head down. Like he couldn't believe Amelia thought he was like this monster.
I thought monsters weren't real, but you proved me wrong. You hurt so many people. You hurt me and the people I love. I just wanted to know why you did it. It will haunt me for the rest of my life, and that life will be without my mommy.
She was very brave, about it. And even she wrote her victim statement all on her own. Yeah. And she did a great job.
Jason McDermott was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole.
He maintains his innocence, but Jason's not innocent. Jason's been proven guilty, and he's guilty.
This case impacted me a great deal emotionally. I retired June of 2021. It was a heavy weight, the pressure of getting justice for that family. It's pretty heavy.
Cindy, my stepmom, and my dad are raising Amelia. She's the glue that's holding them together right now. This has made her have to grow up more than what a normal 8-year-old would. Now she's 10. It's hard for me to realize, like, wow, it's been 2 years. I love that picture of her. So sweet.
She knows she's about to tip.
She's going to fall off on her face.
Even though Amelia may struggle with not having her mom anymore, she really is full of life. She wants to have fun. She wants to make people smile. She wants to make people laugh. And I just think it's so funny how much of a spunky personality she has, just like her mom.
There is not a single day of my life that I have woke up and not relived or thought about Morgan. The only thing I can do is make sure people know, like, she was an amazing person. Morgan meant a lot to